Good evening, this is Primetime News where the people come first. And I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Joining me tonight with our sign language interpretation is Brandy Cruz. Let's now take a look at your headlines for tonight.
Mahasangha joins the people's protest in Goldface. Lawyers also march in support. Sri Lanka announces it would be defaulting on all of its external debt and moves towards a debt restructuring program. 3 more Indian fuel shipments due this month. Facility would be fully exhausted unless Sri Lanka seeks extension from India. Medicine shortage to worsen. Prioritize the importation of medicine over gas, says the medical community. Shanta Bandara sworn in as State Minister, says an interim government cannot be established. President introduces a hotline for the public to inform the authorities of inefficiency in fuel and gas distribution.
First up in news here at home, the people's protest held in Goldface is continuing for the 4th consecutive day today. People from all walks of life were seen at the protest site today as well. And now we are going to cross over to Naveshka Gunasekara, who is joining us with the protest site.
The people's protest that was launched on Saturday at 9 a.m. here in Goldface Green continues for the 4th consecutive day today. And right now what you hear and what you see is the mandate of the people. The people from all walks of life have come here today, united as one, because they need a change. These protesters have been gathered here overnight despite this inclement weather because they want a secure tomorrow. These people have only one genuine request, and that is for the president to step down, for the government to step down and provide a solution to the ongoing financial and economic crisis that Sri Lanka is facing. Now, what's special about this protest is that unlike most of the other protests where you only hear chants and where you only hear where you only see placards, these people are also expressing their thoughts in forms of art. Like they are also singing, there is also music involved, there is drama, and so much more than just a normal protest that we see here in Sri Lanka. We have seen people who have stayed here overnight. There is a camping site onto the left side where people can come and stay here overnight. There have been people who have come here voluntarily to distribute food and beverages and even medicine to the people who have come here to join hands with this demonstration. This is how Sri Lanka has united as one because they need a secure tomorrow. For the Newsfirst team, the voice of the people, I'm Naveshka Gunasekara signing off from Goldface Green.
Heavy rain at the President's office made things difficult for the protesters last night. However, the night turned into a concert soon after the rain stopped. Is it right to play music at the site of a protest? Young people who are protesting for a better tomorrow say that music helps them develop a great feeling of love in a time of distress. Yesterday, it was reported that Shiraz, who supported the cause, passed away due to cardiac arrest.
Get up, stand up for your rights.
The site of the protest near the President's office is being identified as Gota Go Gama as of today. A library has been set up at the location. These young people say that they have a sufficient supply of medicine. Mobile laboratories were set up at the location 2 days ago. Today, a group had taken steps to move them to a different location. Several artists, including veteran musician Nanda Malini, Professor Sunil Ratna and award-winning actress Swarna Mallavarachi visited the protest site today.
We have never seen a time where people are suffering like this, but no matter how tough the times are, the rulers don't seem to pay attention to their woes. They are acting as if they are deaf and blind. Therefore, I thought of coming to this location and extending my support in any way possible.
උන් වැඩි හරියක් සොර දෙටුවෝ දරුවන් උන් උව කරයන් මැරයන් මගේදී කාමට වින කෙටුවෝ අපිට
By this afternoon, more youth attended the protest.
සිංහල දෙමළ තරුණයෝත්තම කොටවන්න එක ගේම් දෙන්න හදන්න ලෑස්ති වෙන්න එපා.
We Sri Lankans have been suffering for 74 years in this country, in this government. Before governments, all the governments have not done their part. The politicians have not done their part, and they expect us to do our part. How can we be doing our work, doing our everyday work, but be here because we are in turmoil. Our country is in turmoil.
මහා සංඝරත්නය සිවිල් සංවිධාන නියෝජිතයින් සහ කලාකරුවන් ඇතුළු පිරිස් අද පස්වරුවේ අරගල භූමිය පළ කරන අයුරු දක්නට ලැබුණා.
The chief prelates of the three chapters have reached an agreement and submitted their proposal to the president. The government must provide a quick solution without making the country more unstable. The solution proposed by the chief prelates is that the government, including the prime minister, must resign. A caretaker government must be formed. The request of the chief prelates is the demand of these people who are on the streets.
හරි අපි බාර දුන්නා කරුණාකරලා ඒක බාර දෙන්න අදාළ අංශවලට තෙල් නැත්තේ ඇයි
Take a look at the reason for the fuel shortage. Russia had approached India and China and agreed to supply fuel. We didn't undertake similar measures because it will anger the US. If the US becomes angry, then they will freeze the assets of them and their children. We are being criticized for gathering here to chase away a Buddhist leader. Who is the Buddhist leader here? These leaders are foolish. Some are calling this a Sinhala Buddhist government, but lands in Punrin in the north, the Delf Islands and Sampur have been given to India. Lands from Golfes running until the south have been given to China. They have given power plants to the US. We are not foolish Buddhists who will believe anyone who beats their chest and calls themselves Sinhala Buddhists. By setting aside foolish racism, we should rally on behalf of the people's voice.
Determined Sri Lankans are continuing protests opposite the President's office in Colombo. In the midst of all the tension, unity is growing among the people. Hassan Shazuli reports.
It's a show of unity and resilience opposite the President's office in the heart of Colombo. People are turning out in large numbers for a mass protest demanding the government to resign. Cost of living in Sri Lanka is skyrocketing, backed by an economic crisis that seems to be getting worse. But amidst the chaos and tension, a growing sense of unity. Volunteers like Dalakanthan are seen distributing food among the protesters.
I want to give something to the people with the little I have. We must solve this crisis.
A few meters away, two men are distributing manioc and sambal. I come here when I'm free, one of them says.
We must come forward, otherwise this country will be destroyed.
The protesters have been battling harsh weather. Some have even camped out opposite the president's office. For them, there is a steady supply of food.
People here say that life has become increasingly difficult, but it hasn't stopped them from being generous. The protesters who have gathered here say they want to help each other as much as possible. They call it unity for a common cause. Hassan Shazuli, News First, Colombo.
Meanwhile, Sri Lankan expatriates are adding their voice to the growing wave of demonstrations against the government.
Sri Lankans had organised a protest in London's suburban town of Woodford.
Not to home, go to jail.
In addition to sending dollars to the country, we would be willing to voluntarily work in Sri Lanka and support the country if a suitable mechanism is prepared for that.
Sri Lankans in Italy's city of Modena also organised a demonstration. The mayor of the Spilambert municipality had also joined the protest. A demonstration was also organised in the US state of Texas today.
I was deceived by their campaign for one country, one law. I am among the 6.9 million people who voted for them. We have gathered here with one objective.
Gota! Gota! Lanka में हॉर्न करेंगे अबू साली मैं कह रजा कर रहा कच्ची ना अल्लाह पता मुझे ये पता मुझे go home Gota go home Gota go home Gota Rajapaksa go to jail Rajapaksa go to jail
අපි ඇමරිකාවේ හිටියට අපි ඔයගොල්ලෝ ගැන හැමතිස්සෙම හිතනවා දැන් ලංකාවේ සිද්ධ වෙන දේ බලන් ඉන්න හරි දුක්ඛයි.
Sri Lankans in Houston had taken to the streets for the second time in solidarity with the Sri Lankan people.
We press the Sri Lankan government to give way to a credible authority who can make things better for Sri Lanka. The next step is Sri Lankans in Houston would like to engage in whatever the way we can help Sri Lanka. We go beyond the protests. So whenever there is a need, we would like to step up. Any need, money, medicines, any other supplies, in credible and legitimate ways to channel to Sri Lanka.
Many of our family members still live and reside in Sri Lanka, and seeing them suffer makes us suffer just as much. 22 million voices cannot be shut down. We will not allow that. Many of us Sri Lankans here in Houston, the United States, throughout the entire world are not going to allow this happen.
Sri Lanka's finance ministry and the central bank announced that the country can no longer service its foreign debt. The island nation has decided to suspend foreign debt payments to avoid a hard default with effect from 5 p.m. local time and restructure debt payments.
Sri Lanka's Central Bank Chief Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe and Finance Secretary K. Mahinda Sirivardhana attended a joint media briefing in Colombo to highlight Sri Lanka's position on debt.
Obviously, now we have come to a situation our ability to meet the service obligation is very, very low. So this is the reason that we have decided. In fact, the background is that we from the Central Bank strongly recommended to the Minister of Finance, given the levels of resource and also given the shortages of essential items for general public, we should not use whatever available foreign currency exchange resource to meet this debt service obligation. Instead, divert and use the scarce foreign currency resource that we are having now to support and finance very, very essential items, imported items like petroleum, gas, pharmaceuticals, medicines, all food items. This is the priority. Best kind of action that we have to take is to expedite the debt restructuring process and also prevent in kind of hard default, which are compelled to default without any notice. That would be the worst situation that we are going to face. So this is some kind of preemptive default.
Sri Lanka will suspend normal debt servicing of all affected debts for an interim period pending an orderly and consensual restructuring of those obligations in a manner consistent with an economic adjustment program supported by the IMF.
Accordingly, the policy shall apply to the following categories of external public debt of Sri Lanka and its public sector borrowers: all outstanding series of bonds issued in the international capital markets, all bilateral government-to-government credits including swap lines between the Central Bank of Sri Lanka and a foreign central bank, all foreign currency denominated loan agreements or credit facilities with commercial banks or institutional lenders, including such institutions owned or controlled by foreign governments for which the Republic or public sector entity is the obligor or guarantor, and all amounts payable by the Republic or a public sector entity following a call during the interim period upon a guarantee or equivalent financial undertaking issued in respect of the debt of a third party.
If we are to obtain a loan from the IMF, we need to restructure our debt to a certain level. It is only after that we can seek further assistance from the IMF, World Bank and others. That would allow us to borrow more. Therefore, in order for the IMF to facilitate borrowings, we need to structure our debt. We are too late in this process. If we did not announce this today, we will have to default on the 200 million for next week. That would be a hard default, and that is an even worse situation.
That is a worse situation.
Why is Sri Lanka unable to settle its debt? Sri Lanka's foreign reserves stood at $7.9 billion at the time of the president's election to office in 2019. Today, the country's foreign reserves have dropped to about $1.9 billion. A Chinese swap facility accounts for a higher share of this. Official data indicate that the foreign reserves available in the form of a currency is much lower. Sri Lanka's failure to settle its debt is mainly due to the rapid decline in foreign reserves. Why did Sri Lanka fall into this situation? Soon after the presidential election in 2019, the government slashed taxes by disregarding expert advice. This cost the government 600 billion rupees in tax revenue. After the COVID-19 pandemic struck, Sri Lanka failed to import vaccines on time, unlike countries like Bangladesh. For reasons unknown to the masses, Sri Lanka lost an opportunity to import vaccines at a low cost. Do you remember the revelation made by opposition lawmaker Manusha Nanayakara at that time?
Although we could have purchased the Pfizer vaccine for $5 each in February or March 2021, we can't even purchase it for $22 now. Similarly, although we could have purchased the AstraZeneca vaccine for $5, we can't even purchase it for $22 now. We could have imported the AstraZeneca vaccine at less than $3 each if we wanted to import 3 million doses. But we didn't import that. We placed the order on July 2021. But other countries had already placed orders by then. In July 2021, when Bangladesh was purchasing Covishield vaccines at $4 each, we were purchasing at $10 or $15. When Bangladesh imported Sinopharm vaccines at $10 each, we imported them at $15. The loss caused due to that was about 14.1 billion. They told lies to cover this up. They made statements through the Bangladeshi foreign minister, China, and even published tweets. But I wish to say that the government looted about $5 from each vaccine.
What happened after that? The government used up the country's foreign reserves to settle debts in 2021 and went with a begging bowl to foreign nations. China, India and Bangladesh were among the countries that provided financial assistance at that time. These loans had to be settled in about 3 months. Against this backdrop, global rating agencies had downgraded Sri Lanka, citing a possibility of debt default. Those in responsible positions criticized the rating agencies and did nothing to address the problem. It was during this period that parliamentarian Ajit Cabral was appointed as the governor of the central bank. He rolled out a roadmap for economic recovery. However, what was the end result? The government settled a $500 million international sovereign bond on January 18th, disregarding advice by economists. Experts had pointed out that delaying the repayment would help Sri Lanka to improve its ratings and re-enter the international market to raise funds. Due to Sri Lanka's weak economic performance, the international sovereign bonds were trading at a very low price at the secondary market. Those who purchased these bonds in the secondary market would have amassed massive profits, but these details are yet to come to light. However, for reasons best known to them, the government settled the $500 million international sovereign bond repayment. The confidence of the international community on Sri Lanka kept dropping after the repayment was made. This was because the country's foreign reserves dropped to dangerously low levels. The end result was that the government wasn't able to pay for the consignments of fuel, gas and coal that reached the country. The then Minister of Power Gamini Lokagia said $51 million had to be paid for one consignment worth $35 million. The next major mistake was to peg the exchange rate of the rupee to the US dollar. The government released its reserves to the market and retained the exchange rate at 202 rupees for a US dollar since coming into power until March this year. Economists say Sri Lanka had lost about $5 billion since 2019 due to this decision. Export revenue and workers' remittances had not flown through the banking system due to the low exchange rate, and this aggravated the crisis. However, during events to declare open highways, some ministers repeatedly insisted that there was no issue in the country's foreign reserves. The question is, was priority given to what was important? Sri Lanka is now facing a situation where it is unable to settle its debt.
About 1.5 years ago, we warned the government that the country would be pushed into an economic crisis. At that time, we also outlined alternative methods that could be adopted to face this situation. But the then Central Bank Governor Ajit Cabral and the then Finance Minister Basil Rajapaksa disregarded this completely. They would have found a solution to this if they had gone to the IMF at that time. If the government had taken our advice, the exchange rate would have stood at 230 or 240 rupees to a US dollar after they allowed it to float. When repeated calls were made to restructure the debt, the government insisted that it would meet its debt obligations. Today, we have run out of reserves. We can't repay our debt. Today, we are seeing queues of fuel and gas. The shortage of medicines has endangered the people's lives. The government's economic mismanagement has caused this situation. The main weakness of this government is the failure to make timely decisions. Why weren't the correct decisions made on time? There are a couple of reasons. The first is whether the elected public representatives are aware of these matters. The second is whether decisions relating to the economy are made on behalf of the country or a certain party. If I am the owner of a sovereign bond and if I am the decision maker, then there is a conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest.
Although Sri Lanka was once called the granary of the East, today the country and its people have been ridiculed before the international community. This is the truth, based on statistics that speak for themselves. The facts don't lie.
The prevailing foreign currency shortage that resulted in suspension on debt repayments now has become a catalyst to fuel shortage in the country as well. Long queues were seen today in filling stations within the Colombo city and its suburbs. This was the situation in Kolonnava, Talangama and near the IDH. Long queues were also seen in Paliyagoda and Maligavatta. Many people had to remain in queues to obtain fuel in Karapitiya and Galle today. After stocks of 92-octane petrol ran out, 95-octane petrol was issued. Long queues for fuel was also observed in other areas as well. A protest also took place near the Kalegana filling station today, alleging that fuel stations is concealing fuel. Long queues for diesel were seen in Mathura as well. Employees of filling stations said that they have not yet received the stocks of fuel which they ordered for today. This was the situation in Mavanella today.
This is how we are celebrating our new year. I have to stay in queues to obtain kerosene oil and then petrol. All our household work are in jeopardy. We need immediate solutions to these issues. The government is destroying our lives every day. On April 3rd, we received 37,500 metric ton consignment of fuel. A 10,000 metric ton consignment was unloaded on the 6th of April. The daily demand is about 5,000 metric tons. Fuel consignments haven't reached the country since the 6th. It's been 6 days. The managers of filling stations are saying that the supply of fuel from the storage terminals in Kolonnava and Muthurajavela has been limited. Some filling stations in Colombo, Gampa and Kalutara haven't received fuel for about 3 to 5 days. It's true that some filling stations in other areas for about 7 or 8 days. Indian media is reporting that Sri Lanka would receive the last fuel consignment under an Indian credit line on the 23rd of April. These reports show that India had to export fuel to Sri Lanka from the end of March due to an emergency requirement, although the supply was to begin on the 1st of April. According to these reports, 3 more fuel consignments are to be sent to the country on the 15th, 18th and 23rd of April. Sri Lanka would exhaust the credit line if it doesn't seek an extension from India. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation's chairman had recently said talks are underway for another $500 million loan from India.
A shortage of medicines and medical supplies induced by the dollar shortage is crippling Sri Lanka's health sector. But in a statement, the Department of Government Information said state-run hospitals have sufficient medicines and medical equipment. The department cited the Health Ministry as saying that reports of a shortage are false. However, Health Ministry Secretary Major General Sanjeeva Munasinghe had told Newsfirst he can't deny that there is a shortage of medicines and medical supplies. He said stocks of some medicines are dropping and that these drugs would be sent to those locations from hospitals with sufficient supplies. The Government Medical Officers Association says there is a shortage of more than 200 medicines.
There's a shortage of about 5 life-saving drugs. There's a shortage of more than 200 essential medicines as well. There's a serious shortage of medicines and medical supplies used for treating cardiac patients, children and cancer patients. We are asking the government to allocate funds for the health sector. We can live without fuel or gas, but we will die if there is no life-saving drugs. As doctors, we are helpless. We are streamlining the medical procedures because there is a shortage of medical supplies. Hospitals are even postponing other surgeries.
සීමා සහිත අත්‍යවශ්‍ය කාරණාවක් කැරෙන්න කල්දමිය හැකියව මේ වෙනකොට රෝහල් වල කල්දමීමට තීරණය කරලා තියෙනවා.
In a Facebook post, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says a hotline has been introduced to accept complaints on discrepancies that occur during the distribution of fuel and gas. These complaints can be filed on 0711 691 691. We will now go on to a quick commercial break and we'll be back with more news right after this. Stay tuned.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ
නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ
අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙමෙයිද දැම්මේ
හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප් එකක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටා
මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප් එක
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් ළඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න
Tech Bus, launched to increase the tech know-how of Sri Lankan students, concludes on a successful note. Organised by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
Welcome back. Let's continue with some more local news. Newly appointed State Minister Shant Bandara says he had accepted the role as to the proposal to form an interim government would be unsuccessful.
Shant Bandara assumed duties as the State Minister of promoting the production and regulating the supply of organic fertilizer and paddy and grains, organic foods, vegetables, fruits, chilies, onion and potato cultivation promotion, seed production and advanced technology agriculture.
The group of independent MPs attempted to form an interim government, but that won't be successful. As a citizen of this country, an elected representative of Sri Lanka, Purujana Peramuna, I made a decision based on that.
Kurunegala District MP Shant Bandara has been removed from all positions he held in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
A protest was held opposite the Sri Lanka Freedom Party headquarters in Colombo, opposing the decision of parliamentarian Shant Bandara. A tense situation arose when SLFP General Secretary Dasira Jayasekara attempted to bring the situation under control. Our correspondent reported that the protesters had dispersed after about an hour.
The Mahasangha and several social media activists engaged in a protest march from the Nelumpakuna Theatre in Colombo today. The march was held under the theme "Do not be deceived by false struggles" to place a hand on Sinhala Buddhist mandate. It was organized by the Rata Venuwen Api organization. The group then marched towards the Vihara Mahadevi Park.
$6.9 million people voted for him to come to power. I want to remind the 6.9 million people that these people are protesting against your mandate. This mindset was created here in our land by the Portuguese and then used by the Dutch and the British for their advantage. We won't allow any person to come into power. Don't even dream about it. If you want power, wait until he finishes his tenure in 5 years. Gain power through an election.
These are difficult times for the people of Sri Lanka. The economic crisis, the growing queues for gas and fuel have left people frustrated. Some continue to remain in hunger, unable to afford 3 meals a day. However, a certain segment of people have taken it upon themselves to all alleviate the views of the people to the best of their capacity.
It is no easy task for donors to come forward at a time when issues faced by the people are worsening by the day. However, thanks to the kindness and generosity of donors, Gammappa is now helping needy families. Over the past few days, Gammappa has taken the initiative to distribute food provisions amongst as many of these families as is possible. The objective is to keep as many people possible happy for the Sinhala and Tamil New Year festival. Yes, we can't help everyone who needs help, but that's not a reason to do nothing. Gammappa, by the people, for the people.
It's time for another commercial break. Do stay tuned.
Tech Bus, launched to increase the tech know-how of Sri Lankan students, concludes on a successful note. Organised by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ එස්ලෝන් ඉන්සයිට්. එස්ලෝන් ජීවයයි ජලය ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa has commented on the situation in the country.
We can't use weapons to win the economic war. The economic war must be won using knowledge and practice. We must do that unitedly. The opinion on the ground is that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa should resign along with the government and the cabinet. We are standing up for those demands. We are not willing to accept the game of musical chairs played by the President and the Prime Minister. We are ready to change and to abolish the executive presidency. We will not only bring back the 19th Amendment, we will also strengthen it. We are ready to adopt alternative measures like no confidence motions and impeachments to do that. We have already taken steps relating to that.
A press briefing was held at the Department of Government Information on the progress of investigations into the 2019 April 21st attacks.
170 suspects have been arrested since this government came to power. 45 of them have been imprisoned, 13 are being questioned under detention orders. Charge sheets have been submitted against 6 suspects. Although Zawan Hashim and 8 of his followers were mainly involved in the bombings, we have identified the main person who had propagated the ideology shared by them. He is Naufar Maulavi. He was the one who pushed Zawan Hashim towards extremism. He introduced the ISIS methodology in Sri Lanka.
පුද්ගලයා එයා තමයි මේ ISIS මතවාදය මේ ලංකාවට අරන් ආපු පුද්ගලයා.
ආදිනල් හිමි පැහැදිලිවම කියනවා මේක කුමන්ත්‍රණයක් තිබුණා කියලා. කුමන්ත්‍රණයෙන් පස්සේ මේ රජය බලයට පත් වුණා කියන. මේ ප්‍රකාශය සත්‍යයක් නම් ඇයි ඔබතුමාලා මෙතුමා ගෙන්නලා කාදිනල් හිමිගෙන් ප්‍රකාශයක් සටහන් කරගන්න නැත්තේ?
පුද්ගලයාට කොහොම වෙතත් ඒ
We won't take drastic measures suddenly due to the respect and love we have for the position regardless of who is holding it. But the Criminal Investigations Department will discuss about this and then appeal to the Cardinal to provide a statement if he is aware of such details.
ඇවිල්ලා අපිට මේ ගැන ප්‍රකාශයක් දෙන්න කියලා.
Sarah. What actually happened to Sarah? If you say that she died, where is the evidence to prove that?
තුමල්ලා මොනවද මිය ගියා කියලා කියන්න තියෙන සාක්ෂි?
ඇත්තටම We have tallied the DNA reports of 16 people. The Criminal Investigations Department has obtained another court order to examine whether we can tally the DNA of Sarah Jasmine. We will exhume the bodies to conduct the DNA test and then comment on that.
ඒ පිළිබඳව ඉතාම පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් අපි කරන්න කැමැති.
And with that, wrap up news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care, stay safe, and good night.